Hi, welcome to All Booked Up with Cailey and Meg. I'm Cailey.
And I'm Meg, and we're both librarians here at Mentor Public Library. Each week, we've been exploring a different theme and giving you some book recommendations that you might be interested in. This week's theme is going to be teen dystopian literature. For those of you that don't know what dystopian literature is, think Hunger Games, Divergent, those would both definitely be dystopian. And basically what it boils down to is dystopian means it's in the future and something really bad has gone on.
Yes, like maybe even a pandemic.
Yeah, maybe.
All the books that we're going to be discussing today are available with your library card for free through Overdrive or the Libby app on your phone, tablet, or computer.
Absolutely. And so let's get started. So my first book that we're going to be talking about today is called The Rule of One. Now this book is written by two twin sisters, Ashley and Leslie Saunders. And they're writing about two twin sisters, but in a pretty different situation. So this book takes place in the far distant future in America, but this is not normal America. This is an America that is decentralized, where each state is kind of its own ruling government. So in this case, we're talking Texas, a very scary Texas, where the governing authority is called the Texas Family Planning Ministry, and they are enforcing a one-child policy. So no more siblings, no twins, no triplets. Well, in this case, there's the two main characters, Ava and Mira, and they're born twins. Now their father, he is a high official in the ministry, and he decides rather than aborting one of the babies or killing them, he lets them both be born, but they decide to switch it up and they pretend to be one person. So they switch every week, and they kind of do a little sister parent trap dance, and it works for a while. Like it's totally normal. It's their normal childhood life, and it goes on for a while. Then once they reach the age of 18, they get caught. And
that's a while. 18 is quite a while.
No, they get away with it. I mean, they got tricks up their sleeve. They know how to do it. But they do get caught, and they have to go as fugitives on the run. And the problem with this, dystopian Texas is, the big cities, they can be fairly safe. But once you head out past the city, that's where there's like no real laws. It's kind of free for all. So they're in a lot of trouble, and basically out for themselves. So kind of have to wait and see what happens to them.
Wow. Well, my next book is somewhat similar to that because it involves siblings going across deserted roads in the future.
Yes. Okay. Tell me more.
So the next book that I'm going to talk about is called 96 Miles by J.L. Esplin. And this one kind of falls towards the younger teens. It's more middle grade. But I think it would read very well for high schoolers as well. And it is about these two brothers who are 13 and 11, and their dad is sort of a survivalist prepper kind of guy. And so he has taught them all sorts of survival skills to survive in the wilderness, things that I do not possess.
Neither do I, don't worry.
Yes, because we are city folk.
Yes.
The boys are left alone while their dad goes on this business trip, and the neighbors are checking in on them. They're fine, but then the power goes out, and it stays out, and their dad does not come home. And so they're worried, but pretty confident that they'll be okay because their dad's taught them all these skills, but also they have stores of food and water, and they have a generator.
Wait a minute. Could we have survived this? No power? I don't know if we could have done it, man.
I don't know. I would have to go out for like pizza once in a while.
Something. I mean, what if we couldn't connect on Animal Crossing, Cailey?
But so having the power out is not something that anyone wants, no. Today or in this book. So the boys, they think they're totally prepared, but their dad's prepper status is not only known to them. And so all of these supplies are stolen. And there's nothing they can do because they're just kids. But so the only way that they see to survive while left to their own devices during this crisis of power outage on a global scale, not just there in Nevada where they are, is to try and get to their family friend's place, which is almost 100 miles away. Hence the title of the book.
Oh, nice. I like it.
And so they set off on this highway on their own to try and get there. And along the way, they encounter a lot of different people, some who are nice and some who want to take advantage of them or take what little they have.
Yeah.
It's sort of a survivalist tale. And because you're getting it from the perspective of this young man, you don't really know exactly what's going on. So it kind of like amps up the suspense of the story.
Man, that's pretty scary. Speaking of suspense, what would you do if you couldn't say sorry? If you couldn't do any gesture without paying to the government? That's kind of what this next one is about on mine. It's called All Rights Reserved, and it's basically a futuristic society where everyone has to wear a Wi-Fi band, and this Wi-Fi band can hear you at all times. And 98% of the human vocabulary is copyrighted by some entity, company, or individual. So
is the Wi-Fi band named Alexa?
You know what? It may be. It should be. Yeah, that's pretty creepy. That's really creepy. Alexa has really creeped me out with knowing my life. Okay. Anyway, I'm gonna go move on. But anyway, if in this world, okay, up till the time you're 15, you can say what you want. You're free. You have your childhood freedom. Once you hit 15, then you do have to start paying these fees for all these copyrighted phrases, slogans. Even if you want to hug your family member, you're going to have to pay up. So the whole land is ransacked with debt. No one can pay these debts. Our main character, her name is Mira, and she's about to turn 15. So she's about to lose her right to say whatever she wants. And the rite of passage in this society is that right before you turn 15, you give this last day speech to say whatever you want to say. Well, her best friend, right before she gives her speech, he commits suicide because he just is overwhelmed by the burden of all the debts that his family owes from this horrible system of paying to speak. So after her friend dies, she decides as a protest that she's going, at her last day speech, to say nothing. So she is completely silent, and it causes a complete chaos within her society. Kids across the country start taking her lead. They stop speaking. So the government is like super mad at Mira, and she's on the run. Like kind of like my other book, like in this dystopian world, you have to be on the run a lot. So yeah, so that's the story, man. It's a really scary one where it's like you could almost imagine it being real.
I think that's the beauty of some of these dystopian stories is that they can be so realistic, and that's what's scary about them.
Exactly.
Well, my next dystopian fiction is sort of a natural disaster of sorts.
And that's kind of cool too. I noticed you picked two dystopian novels that were natural, and mine are kind of scary from a government perspective, like what the government would do, where yours are more like natural disaster. It's kind of scary. A lot of ways there can be dystopia, I guess.
Yes. And in this one, this is called Dry by Neal and Jarrod Shusterman, father-son writing team. And Neal Shusterman is pretty well known in YA.
Yeah.
And he knows how to write a good dystopian story.
Yes.
And this one brings in his son, Jarrod. This book takes place in Southern California in the not too distant future. And there have been droughts going on. And that's not different from what's really happening these days, but water has been rationed, and it has always been there, but it's always been rationed. And it is now to the point where there is not any water. You turn on the faucet and nothing comes out. And as you can imagine, this is going to incite panic in a lot of individuals. And especially once you find out that the government knew that this was going to happen, but didn't tell its citizens. So they are completely caught off guard when this goes down. And
Yeah.
people are ransacking stores, they're stealing from family members. It is chaos. The government brings in some emergency water trucks to try and offset the issues. And Alyssa, teenager, is left with her 10-year-old brother Garrett while her parents go to see the emergency water truck. And they are gone for a very long time and they do not come back.
Oh,
I guess my books are also about parents abandoning their children during crises.
yeah, nice job, parents.
But they leave their children so that they're safer during this. And Alyssa and Garrett, along with their neighbor Kelton, go into town to try and figure out what happened to her parents when they went on this semi-routine sort of journey.
Right.
And what they find in town is terrifying because it has erupted into straight chaos with little regard for people's lives or livelihoods. And they decide that they cannot stay here and they need to go somewhere and find water somewhere. And so they set off on the road as well. All of our books have traveling in them.
Me too.
But they set off on the road as well with a couple other teens that they picked up along the way. And the book is interesting because it jumps from all these different perspectives. So you get the perspective of Alyssa and Garrett and Kelton and also a couple other people. And so you learn different things from different people and it tells you this whole journey collectively. And their journey is not a safe one. They encounter all sorts of dangers along the way. This book, I would say, is more older teens. But it is a super quick read too, though. Creepy,
Cool.
but good.
Yeah, that's awesome. And, you know, these dystopian books, it just reminds you because like the world is so crazy with the times we're going through right now. These books are really kind of hitting close to home, you know, even though it's far in the future, you could really see, yeah, I can see how some of these things could easily happen. So
That's part of the creepiness of them is that they're very realistic.
Oh, yeah. But yeah, thank you everyone for listening this week to All Booked Up with Cailey and Meg. Next week, we're hoping to bring you some books in the adult realm of suspense.
Yes, edge of your seat reads, but without a pandemic, hopefully.
Yes, hopefully.
All right, thank you for joining us. Happy reading.